What is happening, guys? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another video. Today we're talking about the functions of the M Performance digital display race wheel by BMW, and there are a lot of them, like a whole book full. So I took a lot of time going through the book and kind of playing with the wheel over the past few days, and I want to share with you guys the functions that I'm personally going to be using the most. This wheel is incredible. First of all, it looks amazing. The Alcantara feels really good. It's a little bit thicker than the stock one, and obviously you have the shifting lights and you have all these cool functions that you can do inside the wheel. Some of them are kind of pointless, some of them are fantastic. I'm gonna do my best to condense all of the functions that I feel like are important to know about in this video. If you guys are interested in checking out the booklet and reading it yourself, it's actually really good reading material. I will leave a link down below to the actual booklet, and you can go ahead and take a look at it and kind of dive into it yourself. Also below is going to be linked the install blog that I made for this steering wheel. It took me forever to make the blog, but it's really good. If you plan on installing this wheel in your car, you can either check out my last video or the blog. The blog is step by step with pictures, tells you everything that you need. So the first thing that you will notice when you hop into your car, you'll go ahead and start it up. It'll say M Performance on the steering wheel, give you all the lights. That'll show you that the wheel is in fact active. Go ahead and shut the door because your boy's exhaust is loud. Even when the valves are closed, thing's loud. In order to bring the display to life, you're basically just gonna hold down this button and this button. So holding down your two control buttons brought the display to life, and it's on my previous settings that I had when I was driving around before, which is your cooling water temperature and your engine oil temperature. Now, some people think that this colored block up here up top tells you when it's warmed up. No, that is not what that is. This colored block is in fact telling me which mode I am in. There are different modes for this wheel. Think of it like with your car, when you're in like eco mode or like sport mode or sport plus mode. Well, the race display has similar functions. So basically the M Performance digital display wheel has 4 different modes. One is your EfficientDynamics mode, one is your sport mode, one is your race mode, and then the last one is your setup mode. And so I'm gonna show you guys a little bit of all of those and kind of which ones I use the most. Right now I am in sport mode. That is what this orange block is signaling. And it is showing me right now my cooling water temperature and my engine oil temperature. So this is nice to have for me personally because it tells me when the engine is warmed up and ready to be driven hard. In order to back out of this mode, you're just gonna hold down the left button. So if you look right here, these are the actual modes. So we have the efficiency dynamic mode, which is the first one, which is blue. We have the sport mode, which is the one we were just in, which is orange, and the race, which is red. Now this last one, which is white, is setup mode. So if you hold the right button for a long period of time, it's gonna drop you into setup mode. And in setup mode, you have different things like the brightness. You can decide on whether you want mile per hour or kilometer per hour. You can decide what kind of units your cooling and engine oil temperatures are in. And this little gas guy is for fuel consumption. So are you in US or UK? And that's mainly used in EfficientDynamics mode. So when you're toggling around in all of these modes, you basically hold the left one to back out, and you hold the right one to go in to any of the modes. If you just click the left one, it's gonna go left for you, selecting different modes. And if you just click the right one, it's gonna go to the right for you, selecting different categories. So once you have all of these figured out in setup mode, like if I go into my brightness, I can change the brightness of this actual display right here, and I can change the brightness of my actual LEDs. So here are the shift light LEDs. I can make them brighter, or I can make them more dim or completely off. Just like to keep everything near the middle. I'll go ahead and hold this one back out. And then you can do the same thing with the actual display, darker or brighter. Go ahead and back out one more time. So if you look at this little stopwatch, this guy, you go in here, it's got the metrics. So whether you want to do manual or using the automatic trigger. The automatic trigger was an option to install on this car. It's for like if you're at a racetrack, and the service team is collecting the data while you're racing. Obviously we don't have that, so we're sticking with M. And then here are your G's, which are your G forces. So this is the G meter threshold value, and it applies to the display of G meter factors for longitudinal and lateral forces. So that's what that is. We just leave that where it is. We're not gonna mess with it. And then this is gonna be one of the more popular ones. These are your shift lights. So you can go into this one, and you can decide where you want the lights to go off. We'll just leave it at 7. You can see that the display is reading the current RPMs. It goes up a little bit when I rev it. And then obviously when you go up to 7,000, it's gonna bring your lights up and tell you, hey, it's time to shift. Very cool feature that everyone seems to love, and a lot of people buy this steering wheel just for that. But to be honest with you guys, the steering wheel does way, way more than just that. So going into the EfficientDynamics settings, this is basically a reference value, and the book has a ton of information on this reference value and what it means. Honestly, I'm not gonna be really using EfficientDynamics mode. It's cool to have for like consumption, but your instrument cluster pretty much has a lot of the stuff that the EfficientDynamics mode has. You can nerd out a little bit further in EfficientDynamics mode, but for fuel consumption and like average fuel consumption and how long it takes you to get there, you can do a lot of that up here. This does, however, have like a stopwatch, so you can start it when you're going somewhere, and it'll tell you exactly how long it took you to get there with how much fuel consumption. Kind of neat. A little bit different than the one down here where it just tells you like the average. So if you really want to nerd out on like your fuel consumption, you can do so in EfficientDynamics mode. So once you guys have all of your settings figured out, you just go ahead and hit back. And then it brings you back to the main menu, which has all of your actual modes. So we talked a little bit about EfficientDynamics mode, which is mainly just for fuel consumption. And if you really want to nerd out with that stuff, kind of cool, probably something I'll never use. Now this is sport mode, and this is probably the mode that I'm gonna use the most, that I have been using the most. Let's go ahead and hop into sport mode. So here you have your G-forces, and I'm gonna show you guys all of this. The cool thing about your G-forces when you're going around a track, it tells you obviously, or just like a turn, it shows you the meter on each side leveling up with how many G's you're putting into that corner. And the neat thing is, obviously when you're turning the wheel, you can't like read it while it's turning. It holds the value for you, so when the wheel comes back upright, you can see what it is, which is nice because obviously people aren't gonna be able to read it when the wheel is actually turning. So when you're in the actual modes themselves, like I'm in sport mode, you just use this left button to kind of sift through everything that it has to offer in that mode. And then when you wanna actually go into something, you hit your right one, and that'll kind of select you through to the next level of whatever that mode is. So if we look in sport mode, it has your cooling water temperature, and then it also has your engine oil temperature, which honestly is really why I bought this wheel. This car doesn't tell me the actual engine oil temperature, so you don't really have a good idea of when the car is really warmed up and ready to be driven hard. And that's why I like having this display up. I usually just leave it just like this. I use this and the shift lights. Those are the two main things that I use for this. And you can see right now we are at 183 for engine oil and 205 for cooling water. So if we hop into here, you'll see this also has your G-forces displayed in values, and then it also has your stopwatch. So you can start a timer and then it'll give you all of your G's while you're driving. If I just hit this right here, it'll start my timer for me. So let's back out of sport mode and let's head into race mode. Probably one of the sickest modes that you can be in. It is like full-on race mode. So here's obviously your lap timer going around a lap. It's kind of self-explanatory. If you want to activate it, you hit the right one and it's time to go. Then you have a section timer, so you can split that lap up into sections if you want to. And then you have obviously a quarter mile and back to lap. So if you go into, say, your quarter mile and you're like, okay, I wanna do a quarter mile right now with this car, you just hit the right one, and then it gives you 3 seconds in between these red lights, and then it'll start your countdown. And so now you would go. The timer starts. So once you hit a quarter mile, what it's going to do is it's going to stop, and it's going to tell you what your reaction time was, what your quarter mile time was, and what your speed was at a quarter mile, which is absolutely sick. That is like one of the things that I thought was just so cool with this wheel. To clear it out, you just hold down the left one and it'll back out of what you were doing. So it'll give you all those values and it'll save them for you. Obviously I'm in my garage, so it's gonna be a little tough to do a quarter mile in here, but we will go to Mexico after this. So with the lap mode, obviously it doesn't give you the Christmas tree countdown. That's only in the quarter mile mode, which I just think is so cool. It's like so race oriented. I guess that they designed this whole thing off of like an F1 car. They wanted like to be the F1 experience. But yeah, man, I mean, aside from all the cool functions, this thing is just, it's beautiful. Like, it's just such a beautiful wheel. The Alcantara, you know, I've never really been a big Alcantara steering wheel guy. I've usually gone with leather, but I really do like the way this feels. It's very meaty up top, so if you want to grab it up here, you can. But all portions of this wheel just feel so good. I probably will buy a pair of gloves for the racetracks, just so I'm not really beating this up. And there are different ways to take care of Alcantara over time so you don't ruin it. And I will make a video talking about how to take care of Alcantara steering wheels like this one and the products that I use and how I go about doing that. The finisher piece is obviously the dry carbon that goes along with everything else in my car. It just really flows well. Just overall, you guys, this wheel is just sick. Some people will say, oh, I don't want to drop the money on a OEM BMW wheel like that, which is totally fine. You know, you could probably spend half the price and get an aftermarket one, but it won't have these features and it won't be nearly as nice as this wheel. That's just the fact. I've had aftermarket ones and I've had this one, and this is definitely a level up. It is a beautiful steering wheel. These functions for me are really important. I want these functions for getting into track, and just in general, having the oil temperature and the cooling water temperature, like those things to me are super important. The fact that they're not on my display back here is just silly in my opinion. I love having that in the steering wheel and right here. Obviously BMW does say in the manual, like, don't look at this while you're driving, but use discretion when you're actually using this display and you're driving your car. But we are gonna take a quick jaunt over to Mexico, and I'm gonna show you guys some footage of me using this wheel, and I'll actually do a little quarter mile time for you guys. One thing that I will note, you guys, is that after driving for a while, your display up here will eventually just turn off. The backlight will. To bring it back to life, you basically just hold down both the buttons at the same time and it comes right back. If the display does turn off, your shift lights will still work. Everything is still running behind the scenes. It just turns off the actual display. Also, to be clear, there is a oil temperature gauge like this that shows you whether it's okay to drive the car hard or not. It's just got that little bar. But I like having the actual specific values. I just think that that's a little bit more precise and a little bit better to have. Coffee's acquired. Dude, I got my new Nikes. I stepped in gum, bro. And I got gum on my floor mats. Oh, major fail. I think I'm gonna swap these floor mats out for the rubber ones anyways, the M Performance ones. I had those in my F30 and I actually really liked them. Some people complain about them, but I think they're great. They're just really easy to clean. So yesterday it was hot, like really hot, in the high 90s and extremely humid. And in my garage, there's no air. There's no actual air conditioning. There's no dehumidifying or anything like that. So in the garage, this car got super hot just sitting there. And after driving all morning, the display was working fine. I came out in the afternoon and the display wouldn't turn on. It actually wouldn't light up at all when I started the car, and then it would just show me two red lights, two red LEDs on each side when I held it down to turn it on. So I did some research and I found out that if the car does get really hot, the display will not work. So that is something to note, that, you know, if you guys buy this wheel and you notice that you have these 2 red dots when you try to turn it on, and the car's been sitting out in the sun, like it's really, really hot, the display will not function. I think it's also the same if it's like super, super cold. So this display has to be within optimal operating temperatures. But once I just let it sit for a while and I came back in the afternoon and like opened up the door to the garage and let things cool out a little bit, it turned on just fine. So that is something that I just wanted to share with you guys, similar to like your phone. You know, if you have your phone sitting out in the sun and it gets too hot, it doesn't turn on. It's the same thing with the race display. If it gets too hot, it doesn't turn on. But easy fix, just let it cool down, wait a little bit, come back to the car, and it works fine. So a lot of people were saying when I bought the wheel, they're like, well, the Alcantara is gonna get so dirty, it's gonna be so hard to keep clean. It's just like anything. It's the same thing with having a leather steering wheel. Just clean it regularly, and obviously just don't drive it if your hands are super dirty. Just keep your hands clean, take care of it, clean it regularly, and it will be just fine. So in sport mode right now, just kind of showing you guys some of the G-forces that are displayed. And those values are held. So after the turn, it holds the value, shows you what it is. All right, so let's show you guys the quarter-mile time mode. I'm just doing this in Sport Plus in Mexico, but there are other cars. So I'm not gonna do like a full-on launch. I'm just gonna show you exactly how the quarter-mile time thing works with the Christmas trees and your reaction times and all that. So don't expect a full-on drag launch. If you are going to do something like that, obviously do it at like a drag strip or a track, something off of residential roads. All right, so I just stopped here. Gonna hit the light. It's gonna go red and red, and the countdown. So that means it's time to go. Corner here. So that'll give you guys an idea of how that function works. Obviously I'm not launching the car. You can see that I actually started rolling beforehand, so it gave me a negative reaction time. But generally that would show you exactly what your reaction time was. That little run right there was obviously not a real run, but that was 15.05 seconds. And then you can sift through all of the times here. 30 miles per hour at 3.48 seconds in a 60 foot, 67 miles per hour at 7.37 seconds in a 330 foot. And then it gives you an 1/8 mile, which was 93 miles per hour at 10.19 seconds. And then 1,000 foot at 101 miles per hour and the 12.66 seconds. And then of course, obviously your quarter mile, which was 88 miles an hour at 15.05 seconds. So if you're actually doing this on like a drag strip or a track, you can go full gas and it'll give you all of those times, which is really cool. I just wanted to give you guys an example of that actual feature, which is pretty cool if you are at a drag strip. Also, I wanted to show you guys, you can actually save all of those runs as well and recall them later. So you'll see this is like my top one. Did a separate little one at like 14.19 with a reaction time of 0.74, 112 miles per hour at 14.19 and a quarter mile, 1,000 foot at 102, 1/8 mile at 91, 9 seconds, 9.58 seconds, 330 foot at 67. So you can actually save those to the memory of the steering wheel and recall them later, which is pretty sweet. And like I said before, you guys, these aren't like actual quarter mile times. I'm just kind of messing around with the settings. But if I had to guess, this car is probably somewhere in the 13-second range in a quarter mile. I will eventually take it to a strip and find out what this car can actually do once I'm off like residential streets and on an actual strip where I can do that. All right, so that is the M Performance steering wheel. But hopefully you guys, this helped you out. If you're looking to buy it, you're trying to figure out whether this is something for you. Hopefully this video kind of puts some things into perspective, helps you on your deciding factor as to whether you want it or not. Car's looking gorgeous as usual. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching the video. I just wanted to make this so I can show you all of the functions. There are even more functions than what I went through. If you guys are interested in reading about all of it, make sure you check out the link down below that has the actual booklet that comes with this retrofit kit and the steering wheel. You can literally just nerd out for hours and go through all the functions. It's really cool. In my opinion, the styling of the steering wheel and everything that it offers, 100% worth it. If you're interested in buying it, I'll have it linked down below. And if you guys are interested in learning how to install it, make sure you check out the other links, the video that I did on how to install it, and the blog that I've recently written up on how to install it step by step with pictures, tools, everything you need. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching the video. Please do subscribe, comment down below, like this video, hit that bell notification, and just like that, this video is over, and we're out. Peace.